While everyone is busy debating the pros and cons of demonetization, the big question is its impact in rural areas in India. From the announcement date, November 8th, that impacted factory workers paid by the 7th to the execution on the ground. What does this mean really for people living there? And how does it impact consumption, brands and the rural economy in future? And of course, what are those solutions? We have with us Mr. Pradeep Kashyap, our go-to for everything on rural marketing, the founder and CEO of MART. Thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, let me start first by asking you the announcement date and the impact.
The night the announcement was made, we were in our cottage in a village which is about 15 kilometers from Ranikhet in Uttarakhand. So I have first-hand experience of what happened over the next few days. The very next morning when we sent our servant to get some milk from a neighborhood kirana store from whom we've been buying stuff for the last 5 years, he refused to accept the 500 rupee note. So the point I want to make here is that everybody knew about the news. We need to understand the overall context that there are about 2.2 lakh ATMs in India, of which 2 lakhs are in urban India. So these 2 lakhs serve 30% of our population.
And 20,000.
And we have only 20,000 for the whole of rural India, which is 70%
which are also
of our
all
population.
not functional.
I'm coming to that.
Yeah.
So I'm just giving you the numbers. Then you look at the bank branches, only 7% of our villages have a bank branch, serve about 20% population. So the remaining 80% population has to come sometimes from 20 kilometers to access a bank branch. Okay. While we were there for the first 4 days, there was no cash in the state bank branch. So that means the rural economy, at least in that area, went without any cash. And the timing was also not quite right, because this announcement happened on the 7th, and we all know that wages are paid to workers on the 7th. And because the salaries are 5, 6, 7,000 rupees, they're all paid in 500 rupee notes. So people had collected all the 500 rupee notes, and the very next day they became invalid currency.
Now, it also comes at a time which is the sowing season.
Yes.
It's going to directly impact
Absolutely.
every farmer there.
Absolutely. So what happened is that the farmer had gone to the mandi, to the market, to sell his rice. Okay? He's collected money in 500 rupee notes. He's come back and he's now ready to start sowing for wheat. And there's just a 21-day window in which you must sow the seed. Okay? So here is a farmer who has money with him, but he can't go to the market to buy seed for sowing wheat.
Right.
And the loans that he has taken, he is paying interest on it. He wants to repay the money. The bank says, I can't take that money, but I will continue to charge you interest.
We have to focus on consumption.
Sure.
How it's affected directly the consumption, and specifically consumption of FMCG products.
So to start with, consumers don't have small denomination notes because these haven't reached the rural areas, right? So when they go shopping, they don't have enough money. So the first thing they're doing is cutting down on their purchases, and they're buying the bare essentials. The sales have come down by at least 30% for FMCG products in retail stores, and there are some 6 million retail stores in rural India. Not more than 1% have electronic payment systems. So it's a cash economy entirely. In any case, 90% of our population in rural India is in the informal sector, and all payments are made in cash. So what happens is now the kirana store, his sales has come down by 30%. He's got very little money that he has collected from the sale. So the wholesalers will sell only on cash. The retailer doesn't have cash. So therefore, he can't restock.
So he can't even offer too much of credit to his customers.
Because if he offers
because
credit,
there is no stock
then,
available.
How is he going to pay cash to that wholesaler?
What are you seeing your clients do? Are they withdrawing? Are they putting everything on hold at this point?
One, they are going slow on their campaigns, and they're going slow on their promotional schemes because it's not giving them any benefit. If you can't make a sale, what's the point of wasting money on promotion? Similarly on advertising.
Silver lining is that it's ensuring regional FMCG players from getting into the limelight.
This is an opportunity that's opening up for the regional players, because where they were not able to make inroads earlier because of established brands and big company brands, now as the big companies are not giving credit to the retailers, these regional players are trying to enter that market and telling these retailers that we'll give you credit for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, you go ahead and sell. And over the next couple of months, big players will find that their sales in rural are at least dipping.
Okay, so we've seen the impact on, and we are likely to see more impact in agriculture. We are likely to see that impact in FMCG.
Yeah.
If we were talking about two-wheelers, this year the festival season looked up for various categories, including the two-wheeler.
The day after the announcement, footfalls in two-wheeler showrooms have come down by 30 to 40%, and they're down by about 20%. The wedding season has just started, okay? And one of the standard items is a two-wheeler for the to-be son-in-law. We know that most two-wheeler purchases in rural India are on cash. Similarly, the four-wheeler companies, Maruti is already saying that the footfalls have dropped and sales are beginning to drop. And this is after a very good festival season. Which was up to Diwali.
Yeah.
The sales graph was really looking up for two-wheelers, four-wheelers after 2 years, and now it's beginning to nosedive. Microfinance
is one sector which is going to be extremely affected by this.
There are about 7 million self-help groups with a membership of about 70 million rural women. And these women have been saving small amounts of money over the weeks, months, years. And this money has been saved, therefore, in 500 rupee notes. And the men or the husbands were not quite aware that women have this kind of saving, because these notes have become invalid and women are not that literate. They don't have their own bank accounts. They're giving that money to their husbands to go and exchange this for, valid currency, which the men are doing, but they're not returning the money to the women. It's been a body blow on economic empowerment.
We'll continue our discussion with Mr. Pradeep Kashyap. He's the founder and CEO of MART, and we'll talk about solutions. Welcome back. You're watching All About Ads on NDTV Prime, and we continue our discussion on what's the impact of demonetization on rural India, and of course particularly some categories like FMCG, like two-wheelers, and of course microfinance. And joining me once again is Mr. Pradeep Kashyap. He is the CEO and founder of MART. Thank you again very much for joining us, and we continue our discussion. What are the concrete solutions according to you?
This 2.5 lakh ceiling for weddings is not sufficient at all. We may believe that rural people don't spend much on weddings, but there are studies to show that the average spend is about 5 to 6 lakhs. It's a question of your status as a family.
Are you going to see a lot of debt in rural India?
One is debt, but the more important thing is more loss of jobs, of employment. The owner farmers who have labor working on their lands are not able to pay them in 100 rupee notes. The laborer goes to the bank to try and exchange. He spends the whole day. He loses wages for that day. In the larger context, 90% of our employment in rural India is in the informal sector. And therefore, it's all cash. And if that cash becomes invalid, it's going to also have an impact on the GDP. The rural economy is going to shrink. And in the long run, my worry is that, see, these companies who have stopped their distribution into rural India, once the situation normalizes, it'll take them a couple of months to restart their operations, because they can't press a button and start it today.
There is a larger issue that is going to emerge in the next few months. I don't think we can anticipate how bad that is going to be, but it surely at this point, with everything that you've said to us, doesn't really bode very well. Thank you very much for joining us on All About Ads.
Thank you very much for having me on the show.